Happy Friday morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Morning Jocks. Conrad Van Order alongside Damian Mitchell here with you for the next hour until 7 o'clock. Appreciate you making us a part of your morning each and every day here on Morning Jocks. And a special shout out to everyone that came out to the Jocks kickoff party last night at Regents Field. It was fantastic. Unfortunately, the weather didn't always cooperate with us, and I know a lot of people got rained on. I got soaked. A lot of people got soaked, but we were able to get inside at one point, and it was really nice to see how many people not only how many people showed up, but how many people showed up in not ideal conditions and said, you know what, it may be raining. It may be kind of yucky outside, but I don't care. I'm still going to make sure that I go and I make it to Regents Field for the kickoff party last night. We seriously cannot thank all of you enough. There were so many people that we got to meet, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces as well, and some people that, maybe you don't hear about, whether it's people that, don't call in or they don't text in necessarily. They just listen to the shows and they love being a part of things. And it was really cool to get to meet each and every one of you and talk a little bit of football and just I don't know, just kick back and hang out and get to meet a lot of the people that allow us to do this each and every day. So I know for myself, and I think I speak for Damien as well, we just really, really appreciate everything that y'all did for us, and it was a big time last night, Damien.
Absolutely. I think last night was it was very indicative of just how much fun we get to have up here. And it's a job for us. It is. But the connection that we have with the listeners, and I mean it was a monsoon yesterday. Like it was, the weather was not cooperating with us at all. And yet it still didn't stop, a lot of the winners from showing up and having a great time and just kind of just hanging out, relaxing, and just talking ball, talking life. And you know how many people were coming up to us and just say like, man, we appreciate y'all starting up our mornings. And we were like, man, we appreciate y'all for listening at 6 o'clock in the morning, because what we do, yeah, it's a job, but it's so much fun that to have those, connections and have those experiences. And for the weather to not be as ideal and still see that many people show up yesterday, last night, it was a great time, and I had so much fun. And I'm already looking forward to next year of just, man, I wish we could have more people just show up, man, because it was great. And just having the love and connection that we have with our listeners, it's what makes this job worthwhile. It really does. And because a lot of people were talking about our takes and things like that, and it's just, hey, when they realize that we're just as human as they are, it really just kind of it humanizes everything, and it's just a lot of fun. And I had a great time last night. I really did.
Yeah, no, it was an awesome event, and we enjoy it each and every year, and hopefully next year we get a little more sunshine, but we get to see all the same people again next year, and hopefully we're able to expand it and bring even more people into the fold, because that's the other thing that's very, very cool to see, is just how many people. I know, unfortunately, some people disappointed that they weren't able to get tickets, but again, just like the overflow of support and just the eagerness that a lot of y'all have to come and hang out and have an opportunity to talk a little college football and share something that we all care and love about so much together is very, very special. And it's why we feel like a family here at Jox, and we appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of that. But quickly, Damien, we'll get to a lot of news to get to, some big news to get to. But part of the Jox kickoff party last night, go ahead and tell everybody. I know the people that were not there or maybe didn't see on social media last night have been wondering, and you have had to make a decision. You had narrowed your choice down to 5 teams, and you were going to pick one team that you would be rooting for this upcoming college football season. So tell the world, Damien, who will you be rooting for this upcoming fall out of the SEC?
For the 2025 season, my fandom will reside in Oxford, Mississippi, as I am officially an Ole Miss Rebel fan. I want to thank all the fans from Oxford that have reached out, all the fans and listeners that we have that are Ole Miss fans, for their support. And yeah, listen, there will be no more Eli Manning slander. as far as when it comes to college football. NFL is still up for debate. But I think that, when I looked at 2025 and the teams that I was selecting from, I kind of picked with the biggest upside of, hey, if it all clicks, I could see this team having a lot of success. And I think Lane Kiffin is on a revenge tour for what happened last season. And, I think when I look at their schedule and how it all lays out, if this Austin Simmons kid is as good as advertised, I expect big things in Oxford, Mississippi. So it's been a fun ride. The recruitment journey that I had getting to this point, and finally making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so for this fall, hotty toddy, baby.
Well, we're proud of you for making your decision. I know it wasn't easy for you, but I'm sure the Ole Miss fan base and Pat Smith are happy to have you. Safe choice.
I got a lot of that yesterday.
It's a safe choice
because they were like, "Oh, you don't play Alabama, you don't play Auburn, you don't play Tennessee," because everybody was just because a lot of people just assumed I was going to pick Tennessee, and I kept asking them why, and they were like, "Well, you're the hype disciple." I was like, "Yeah, but have you really looked at what 2025 holds for Tennessee?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, okay, well, then it kind of eased into it. A lot of people thought I was going to take Oklahoma just because of the fact that we love John Mateer.
Mm-hmm.
But I told him that,
I thought that's the way you were going to go, honestly.
Now, the recent gambling scandal kind of shook that up a little bit, and
that's fair.
The NIL budget started to take a little bit of a dip, but they couldn't correlate it to what happened a couple of years ago. But no, I looked at Ole Miss, and from the conversations I was having with a lot of fans and where my heart resided, and I started looking at the offense and what it could be, and I was like, you know what, I'm going with it, and I 100% stand by my decision. So, like I said, hotty toddy, Conrad.
Well, props to you for following your heart, and as I've said many times, good on you for not picking Alabama. We didn't want you anyways, but no. So congratulations, Damian. He makes the big decision. He will now be an Ole Miss fan, at least for the next season. So we will see what kind of a season that ultimately is. But a lot to get to today. Of course, the big news that I'm sure everyone is interested in talking about, even though, to be fair, we've been talking about it for a couple of years already. So it feels like, oh, okay, yeah, we've been here, done this before. But the big news yesterday, if you somehow missed it, is the SEC announced that they are officially going to move to a 9-game conference schedule starting in 2026. So this is a big change in terms of it's going to bring more money in, you would think, to the schools. I know we were talking about it yesterday on Three Man Front, and Pat Smith had floated out somewhere between maybe $3 and $5 million extra per school in the SEC on an annual basis is what you might be looking at this point, which certainly that's certainly not nothing in a new era where you're going to be paying $20.5 million a year to your student athletes. If you're one of these SEC programs. But I think the big implications now is, right, we can move ahead with what the plan is for the college football playoff, hopefully, because according to Tony Petitti, that had been the big hang-up for him, right, is, well, if we're playing 9 conference games in the Big Ten, before we agree to any sort of playoff format, then we need to do that, or we need the SEC to follow suit. And we talked about this a little bit the other day, but so the playoff committee, they have announced this week that they are going to start using some enhanced metrics, is what they're calling them. But basically, the general synopsis of it is, yeah, we're going to factor in strength of schedule a little more now than we used to. That's basically the gist of what the playoff committee says they are going to do moving forward. And because of that, and their willingness to kind of, I guess, hold that criteria in a higher regard, because let's be honest, it's going to favor the SEC and the Big Ten, but mainly the SEC over all of the other conferences. That's what gave the presidents, commissioners, and or Commissioner Sankey the, I guess, kind of go ahead to get this done, because now it feels like, hey, we're not going to be necessarily penalized for playing that extra game. And let's just be honest, it feels like now, okay, you're opening the door for maybe it's a little easier for a 9-3 team out of the SEC or the Big Ten to find themselves in the college football playoff moving forward. But this is in a statement from Commissioner Sankey yesterday from their press release. He added, quote, adding a 9th SEC game underscores our university's commitment to delivering the most competitive football schedule in the nation. This format protects rivalries, increases competitive balance, and paired with our requirement to play an additional power opponent, it ensures SEC teams are well prepared to compete and succeed in the college football playoff. And so, essentially, what he's also kind of telling you there is, hey, we really want to keep these Florida State games, these Clemson, South Carolina games, Georgia Tech. We want to keep those, and we are going to essentially everyone needs to play an equivalent schedule to what those teams have to play, right? Because they're now going to have to play 9 SEC games and then that 10th game against their rival in another power conference. Well, let's just make every school in the conference play a power opponent every single year, and maybe that'll lead us to ultimately getting something like, the SEC Big Ten Challenge type deal we had talked about, where, maybe early on every season, whether it's week 1, week 2, you just have a collection of, the best teams from the SEC versus the best teams from the Big Ten, or however you want to situate that, and to get those high quality matchups that I think a lot of people would be excited about. So a big announcement yesterday from the SEC that they will move to 9 conference games. So they're still going to stick with the no division format. So we're not going back to divisions or anything like that. And every school is going to have 3 annual opponents. And they have said they are going to attempt or focus on maintaining a lot of the rivalries that we hold near and dear here in the conference. And then your 6 remaining conference games are going to rotate amongst the rest of the league. And so it's basically what we had heard every year is that you will face every other SEC team at least once every 2 years, and you will get essentially a home and home with every team in the conference in a 4-year span. So it's going to be that kind of a rotation, which isn't all that dissimilar to, I guess, the way that it's set up now. But this way, you don't end up in a situation where, right, Georgia has never played at Kyle Field in College Station, right? And Texas A&M has been in the league for 13 years now, and it's never happened. So this is to prevent things like that. It is kind of funny that they had to go to Austin and play Texas in their first year in the conference, and it's taken them 13 years to play Texas A&M. But that's the way that that's going to be set up. So you're going to have the 9 conference games, 3 rotating or 3 annual opponents, and then 6 rotating opponents around the conference. And in addition to the 9-game schedule, you will also have to play at least one conference opponent or non-conference opponent from the ACC, the Big Ten, or the Big 12, or Notre Dame is also included in that grouping there. But it looks like you're going to be good with those ACC, SEC rivalries. Those are going to be maintained. I know that was something that some people were worried might go away. But the SEC is staying put, and they are going to 9 conference games, which will be a big, hopefully, step forward in these college football playoff negotiations. And let's be honest, it's just going to give us more high-quality football games. So I don't think anybody's going to be too upset about that. It is interesting, though, that after this happened, Jim Phillips of the ACC came out and said, "No, we're staying at 8. We don't want to do that whole 9-game thing. We're just going to stick at 8." So that it is what it is. But hopefully this can move things forward. We can get that 16-team playoff format settled for next year and beyond. And hopefully this gets rid of all that 28-team playoff crap that Tony Petitti was talking about last weekend. So a big change here in the SEC is they will have a 9-game conference schedule starting next season. And with the 3 annual opponents, I know this has been a hot topic, and that's where we want to bring you in, the listener, 205-834-9450. Who do you want your annual opponents to be for Alabama, for Auburn, for whoever it is that you root for? I know we have LSU fans, Florida fans, Tennessee fans, all kinds of fans. Who do you want the 3 annual opponents to be? Because if you remember, right, for Alabama, it was going to be Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU. Nick Saban wasn't a big fan of that when he was the coach. He's like, man, that's maybe a little difficult. For Auburn, you were going to have Georgia, Alabama, and Vanderbilt, right? So you get, maybe the 2 best teams or 2 of the best teams in the conference, and then you also get Vanderbilt. So how do you feel about that? So we'd love to hear from you, 205-834-9450. What are your thoughts on permanent opponents and the new 9-game SEC conference schedule? And we will get back to that a little bit later in the show. But we do also have some big news here to get to in terms of what's going on not only this weekend in college football with scrimmages, but how about those Auburn Tigers slowly but surely finding their way back up the recruiting rankings? And yesterday they got their biggest catch of the recruiting class. We'll tell you who it is and just how far Auburn has moved up in those recruiting rankings. You're listening to Morning Jox. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back in. It is the Friday edition of Morning Jocks. Conrad and Damian here with you. Appreciate you making us a part of your morning. As if you're just now joining us and you somehow missed the big news yesterday, that would be the SEC moving to a 9-game conference schedule starting in 2026. What does that mean in terms of permanent opponents? Because everybody's going to have 3 permanent opponents and then rotate through 6 others, in addition to having to play at least one non-conference Power 4 program a year as well. So you're guaranteed, starting next year at least, you're going to get at least 10 very, very high-quality games from every school in the SEC. In some years, you might even have more than that. I know, for example, Alabama, as it's set up right now, would have 11 some of those years and in a number of years. But I know Greg Byrne has come out and said that they're going to evaluate their non-conference schedule and what that looks like moving forward. And I'm sure every other team or program in the SEC is going to be doing that as well. So that's kind of been the big topic. But if you're an Auburn Tiger, maybe the even bigger news yesterday was, of course, on the recruiting trail, as Braylon Womack, the number 1 safety in the upcoming recruiting class from the state of Mississippi, he committed to the Auburn Tigers. He picked Auburn over Ohio State, Texas A&M, and one other program as well. But the biggest get of the recruiting class for Auburn, he's their first 5-star pickup. And talk about making some movement in the recruiting rankings. So yesterday, you were in the mid-30s on 3, and now this morning, Auburn has moved up to 22nd in the On3 recruiting rankings. And yesterday, you were 54th at one point on 247, and now you've moved up to 35th. So very, very impressive job that Auburn has done. I know, again, they're still not where they want to be. You're not in the top 10 like you have been the last couple of years in that area, but certainly trending in that direction is right now. Auburn, at least according to On3, you're 22nd, and that's with 13 commitments. And you go and you just look at, kind of the rest of the board and what you're working with, like USC, right? They have 32. Georgia has 31. It's crazy. Alabama has 21. A&M has 27. Texas has 21. So from a number standpoint, Auburn's still lagging behind a lot of those programs. But if you get those numbers up into, the low 20s, there's a very good chance that Auburn does find themselves at least in the top 15, and if not at the end of the day, ultimately right there in the top 10 as well in recruiting. So considering all of the bad publicity that they got, and to be honest, we gave them a hard time about it because it wasn't working at that point. And so whether they have changed their approach, they have maybe seen the writing on the wall of, okay, well, we had an idea of how this was going to work, and it was different than how everyone else was operating, and everyone's still operating that way. So maybe it's time for us to follow suit. But whatever it's been, it's certainly worked out for Auburn, as they have made quite the jump in the recruiting rankings, now up to 22nd according to On3 and 35th according to 247. So a big pickup there for Auburn. Of course, the disclaimer, it doesn't matter until December because these kids can change their mind. But certainly as it stands right now, if you're an Auburn fan, you got to feel really, really good about the direction that you are trending on the recruiting front. So that's the big news in Auburn land yesterday. Of course, they're going to have their final scrimmage today. And so today, kind of a dress rehearsal for next week, where they're going to go through their game day preparations. They're going to eat a team meal together. They're going to go through walkthroughs. They're going to go there. They are treating this like they are walking on the field tonight at Jordan-Hare to face the Baylor Bears, not the Auburn Tigers. Of course, they're going to be playing in Waco next week, but it'd be interesting to see what you get out of that final scrimmage for Auburn today. Alabama going to have their final scrimmage tomorrow, and we know that they're already starting to turn their attention to Florida State, just like Auburn is with Baylor. So quickly, we'll give you a little bit of an update from Alabama. Let's hear from Kalen DeBoer as he met with the media yesterday. So not a ton of new information, a lot of checking up on guys that are banged up. As we know, James Smith, he's been back at practice. Jaden Roberts still being held out for his injury, so that's maybe a little bit more of a concern as you are just 8 days away from that season opener. But let's hear from Kalen DeBoer. This is just kind of the way he opened up his media availability, talking about Alabama turning their attention to Florida State, and he also throws in a quick update on Jam Miller.
Introing into Florida State here, first reps. We obviously have done a lot of homework and different meeting rooms and things like that might have snuck some peeks on film. But as far as coordinated efforts in practice, today was where we started that. So both sides of the ball, all phases of the game. So that was good. And then just update, because I guess I never really have had a chance to address you guys. Jam, with his injury, a little more significant than what I thought when I was there for the press conference with you guys last. Found out more information afterwards. So he'll be out. We'll go week by week, but he'll be out for, first game for sure, and we'll play it from there. So.
And I will just say, based on what he said there, I don't think, because I could see where some people go, oh no, like it's really, really bad. I don't think, I think they were optimistic that it might just be, oh, he's going to miss one game and come back. And I think once you hear the collarbone, you realize, yeah, okay, it's probably more realistic that you're just going to give him a little bit of time to work back. And again, would you like to have him for Florida State? Would you like to have him for Wisconsin? Yeah, you would, but you really want to have him back for the Georgia game, right? So you're going to be careful with that. And so I don't look at that as, oh no, it's way worse than we thought it was, on Monday. It's just immediately after the scrimmage, I think it's, him finding out that additional information. We've gotten to hear from Ryan Grubb and some other people this week about it too. So I would still think, based on everything that I've been told, the Jam Miller, their hope is he's going to be back for Georgia. So I don't think that's changed at all. But how about that running back spot? And what has Kalen DeVore seen from the other guys there behind Jam Miller? And is anybody standing out from the pack?
Just looking for someone to separate themselves. That's really the situation, and they feel like Jam was certainly at a higher level and need these guys. And, I know they're hungry and, they want to do it. Now they just got to show us. And, it's not just one area, it's all phases. It's running the ball. It's pass protection. It's just all of those things combined. So again, each guy's got some tools, got some things that they can do. But need him to stand out, because there's kind of a log jam there, and each of them have their strengths, and they all can fit into the offense in some form or fashion.
This is a good play on words there. Log jam.
Yeah.
You think he wrote that one down before, or just kind of rolled off?
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as one that could, prepare that one. I think he kind of just you get caught up in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I was clever wordplay there, Coach. I don't know if that was intentional or not. But there you go. Again, maybe not what you want to hear if you're an Alabama fan, essentially of, yeah, we got some guys with an opportunity, but they're all, I guess, at a similar level in terms of taking advantage of that opportunity. So someone is going to have to step up. Will it be Richard Young? Will it be Kevin Riley? Will it be the transfer from Louisiana? Who is it going to be ultimately that steps up in that running back room for Alabama? We will just have to wait and see against Florida State, but that is certainly going to continue to be a big topic of conversation. But another thing that's been a big topic of conversation, of course, is the SEC moving to 9 conference games. And we asked you the question a little bit earlier in the show. If you're an Alabama fan, an Auburn fan, Florida fan, like our buddy PG, who's waiting to get on with us, who do you want your 3 annual opponents to be? And what would you not be happy with, right? If you're an Alabama fan, do you think that Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU, is that too tough of a draw? If you're an Auburn fan, Alabama, Georgia, and Vanderbilt, are you happy with, okay, you got 2 difficult games, but you're also going to have, in the Diego Pavia-less years, a pretty easy opponent, you would think, in Vanderbilt. Is that trade-off kind of worth it to you? But we'd love to hear from you, 205-834-9450. We also have a list of the, I guess, proposed annual opponents that we can go through and just kind of share what we think ultimately will happen. But we want to hear from you and what you, the fans, want to see happen. Because I know a lot of people, I saw a lot of Alabama fans yesterday saying, hey, what if we dropped LSU and picked up Mississippi State? Well, yeah, I'm sure you would like that, wouldn't you? Especially right now, it might make things a little bit easier, but don't know if the SEC office will necessarily go for that, but I guess time will have to tell. So we'll dive into that. Annual opponents, who do you want to see for your team, and what do we think ultimately will happen? We also get to your text, your calls, PG. We see you on hold. All of that and more coming up next here on Jox. 6:33 here on your Friday morning. Conrad and Damien here with you on Morning Jox. Appreciate you tuning in and appreciate everyone that was able to make it out to the Jox kickoff party last night. We had a great time cutting up, talking ball with each and every one of you at Regions Field last night. And one of those people, before we get back into the discussion about the 9-game conference schedule in the SEC, was our buddy PG, who's a big Florida fan. And PG, how are you doing this morning, man? It was good to see you last night.
Well, guys, it never gets too old to go on all these kickoffs. I think I've been to every one since Jox has started all this, and probably one of the oldest callers. And it's always great to see you guys, of course, and the fans that even know who you are. And I'm not even an Alabama native, and it's nice they still even know who I am, and even sometimes likes the Gators because of PG. And most time they don't, the other time. But it's great. And I got to give Damien kudos. That was a good pick. Florida's. I told him that daunting schedule of Florida's. I don't know anybody to pick us. He'd have to sweat it out because every game's going to be a tough one. And I bet Don's already jumped off the ship when he heard that recruit last night. If he heard it, but he didn't buy the international pass. So he after he passed Key West to go to Nassau, he probably can't get nothing. That's probably killing him. So,
well, he'll be very, very happy when he makes it back. Makes it back to American soil, won't he, PG?
Oh God, it's killing him. I bet he's been dying to want to. Boy, and it was quieter last night since he wasn't there. No, not bad, Don. Just kidding. But guys, there's LSU and Florida. I mean, both of us want to split from each other for a while. It would be nice. I would like to pick up Auburn, to be honest. That was a good Amen's cornerback in the old days with Georgia and Auburn and Florida in November. And that would be good to get Auburn as one of the three because we're going to be stuck with Georgia and Tennessee, no doubt. But LSU and Florida want to split that a little bit and play somebody else for a change. That would we've been both of us want this, but I guess the SEC don't see it fit to do that. I have a feeling it's going to still be LSU, Tennessee, and Georgia. What do you guys think? Or maybe we can get rid of Tennessee for a change. Who knows? But I don't know. It's different. I got to get used to 9 games. I wish we could do that to play Florida State. Some of these Miami's out of conference games. Maybe we need some more LIUs for us.
Yeah, I was about to say, y'all's schedule is about as difficult as it comes, PG. But hey, appreciate you chiming in this morning. Thank you for coming out and being a part of things last night at the kickoff party. But so for what PG just asked, he goes, all right, so who would the opponents be? So a couple of years ago, it's very nice of Pat Smith to go, and he put this out on his Twitter last night. But when this had originally come up in conversations a couple of years ago, the SEC essentially said, hey, we're going to do a rough draft of who we think everyone's annual opponents should be. And so they went through and they picked 3 teams or 3 schools that would be your annual opponents for every university. And we'll get some of your thoughts on these. This is where we've already mentioned some of them, right? So for Alabama, they picked Auburn, LSU, and Tennessee. That's when Nick Saban got mad, and he said, I don't think that's fair. Maybe this is a little more difficult than some of the other ones. But that's what Alabama was given by the SEC. Auburn, LSU, Tennessee. Now, Auburn, they were given, as we've discussed, Alabama, Georgia, and Vanderbilt. So while maybe you don't have 3 very difficult games, you have 2 arguably of the most difficult opponents you could have in the conference. But then you also have Vanderbilt, which, I mean, maybe right now isn't one of the easier opponents, but I think, most years that's going to be one of the easier teams that you could draw. So PG asked about Florida. Florida, they would get Georgia, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. So you would get your wish. You wouldn't be tied to the hip to LSU anymore. You wouldn't have to play Tennessee. But I think we all know Florida and Georgia are going to play each other. That one you are going to want to maintain. But let's go through this quickly. Arkansas, their opponents would be Missouri, Ole Miss, and Texas. Georgia, you would have Auburn, Florida, and Kentucky. Kentucky, they would have Georgia, Mississippi State, South Carolina. LSU would have Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. Mississippi State, they would go Kentucky, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Missouri would get Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. Oklahoma would get Florida, Missouri, and Texas. Ole Miss, Damien's new favorite team, they would get Arkansas, LSU, and Mississippi State. South Carolina would go Florida, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Texas would get Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. A&M would get LSU, Mississippi State, and Texas. Tennessee would go Alabama, South Carolina, Vandy. and then Vanderbilt would get Auburn, Missouri, and Tennessee. So there's a lot of difficult ones thrown in there. I mean, there's really not that many that you look at and go, oh, that would just be, that one would be pretty manageable. And especially, now you expect ebbs and flows and how good some of these programs are. So it'll kind of be changing. But that's what the SEC laid out a couple of years ago. We'll see if that's how it ultimately ends up or if they shuffle some things around. But I know some people, not maybe the biggest fans of the draws for Alabama and Auburn and would like to see that change a little bit. But what are your early thoughts on that, Damien? Do you think those are too hard with Alabama getting Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn getting Alabama, Georgia, Vanderbilt? Do you have a problem with those? Do you think those are just about right? What are your thoughts?
I mean, Alabama, it's the three rivals. Like, you're going to get them every single year, and I think that's what's good for them. But for Auburn, you just got to find a way to replace Vandy. Like, they're just the odd man out. Because, again, it's
but don't you want that if you're Auburn, right?
I mean, they didn't beat them last year.
Well, when Diego Pavia is finally removed from college football, whether that's next year or 10 years from now.
No, I would much rather be like an LSU because
okay.
Because it's a great game. Like, every time that they match up with each other, I'm just looking at like the.
You don't want the easy victories.
That's no. Okay. We're looking for the eyeballs, man. Like, we try to make sure you're on primetime ESPN, not buried at 11:45 on the SEC network. No, man, we need you primetime ESPN. With a big kickoff, man, with like an Auburn LSU. I just look at the matchup. Like, I just think that would be more of a sell than anything. Because again, when you're in the SEC West, you had no other choice but to play these teams. Mm-hmm. So why stop it now? Like, I mean, I understand it because you got more teams in the conference, but I just think like, okay, you've slayed the giant before. One of the biggest draws that you have is when you win big, you have difficult games on your schedule. You find ways to get them. Why not keep that momentum rolling?
So let's see here. We have a bunch of people that are chiming in with their thoughts on the text line. And I like where your head's at, right? Because I think from the fan perspective, do I want to see more competitive matchups and do I want to see people take on more difficult schedules? Absolutely. You just also have to factor in, right? They're also worried, the commissioners, the presidents, they're worried about getting as many teams into the playoff as possible, right? And if you are an athletic director or you're the president of a university, your focus is on what sets up with the best opportunity to make the college football playoff as frequently as possible. And so I just wonder how much pushback you might get from some of the universities in terms of, that might be a little bit trickier of a schedule because, again, right, we do want those big matchups. ESPN, certainly, that's paying for the TV deal, they want the big matchups. But, some of the schools maybe, hey, throw us a Kentucky. We're not going to complain about that. But I like Damien, and I like your mindset about, hey, yeah, let's play the most difficult games and let's give the people what they want. But a lot of you chiming in on the courtesy GMC text line and getting a variety of fan bases that are weighing in here. So we'll start off with Chris, who chimes in from Rogersville. He says, as an LSU fan, I'd like to see our three permanent opponents be Florida, Bama, and Arkansas. I think it's a great thing that we're going to 9 conference games. Go Tigers. I think it's a good thing, too. Certainly, from a fan perspective, it is it's more high quality football, and that's what we all want. Bobby, another LSU fan, chimes in. He says, I want our 3 permanent opponents to be Alabama, Florida, and Ole Miss. Also, the kickoff party was a blast last night. Just wanted to thank y'all and everybody at Jox for putting that on for the listeners. Well, thank you, Bobby, for listening every day and for making it out there last night. It was certainly good to see you. But okay, so he goes Alabama, Florida, Ole Miss. Chris goes Alabama, Florida, and Arkansas. Again, I think it's just interesting because I think we all agreed that Ole Miss, those have been great games lately, right? Like, yes. I wouldn't, it's not necessarily a rivalry, but it's like it could become one, right? If they played on an annual basis. But then the Arkansas one obviously is a rivalry, and it's, at least right now, an easier game.
That's one way to put it, Conrad.
Yeah, it is. Well,
it just hasn't gone in Arkansas's favor.
Well, I thought you'd be wanting to stand up for your new school. Puff your chest out about how good Ole Miss is.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I'm the classy fan.
Okay.
I keep it classy.
Okay. I got you. That's good to know. Let's see. John Mack, Texas A&M fan. He chimes in. He says, our permanent 3 opponents will be LS sucks. So LSU. Thank you for that, John Mack. LSU, Oklahoma, and Texas. Nobody will have a tougher schedule, but we won't complain about it because we aren't whiny, whiny, crying babies like you Bammers.
Why not put them on your schedule then?
Well, I mean, that's...
Why just throw caution to the wind and say, nah, we want Bama. Then you can prove it every single year if you want to.
And you know what? I'll give some respect to John Mack, because to stand up and say that when your team has never made a college football playoff, I respect it. Because now, like, you're not going to make one. So I applaud you for being okay with that being continuing to be the status quo there in Aggie land. So we know we love you, John Mack. We just have to give you a hard time. Drake chimes in. He's a big Florida fan, as we know. He says Auburn, Alabama, and Georgia is who he wants for Florida. That would be quite a gauntlet right there for the Gators. Let's see. This person says, and I think a lot of people, at least right now, with the talking that's been going on, this person says, as an Auburn fan, I want Ole Miss on the schedule every year.
Absolutely.
I think some people would like to play Ole Miss this year.
Yeah, I know they would.
Your coach has had some things to say.
We'll see him in Atlanta then.
That would be a first for them.
It's okay.
It's been a minute for both of them. Yeah. Anyways, we don't have to get into
But I will
it's
say
Friday.
this.
We're having a good time.
I will say this though, if you follow the trend, most coaches that leave Ole Miss, or at least in the past 25 years or so, 30 years or so, they usually get an Auburn job. So you can hate them all you want, but let Hugh Freeze find an exit. I'm pretty sure somebody in Oxford, Mississippi will be getting at least a text message. What you doing, big head? You want to come over here to the Plains? He wouldn't do it, though. Let me stop lying. Yes, he would.
I was about to say, Damien,
yes, he would. Yes, he would.
I feel like I remember a potential situation not all that long ago involving Auburn. And, anyways, we'll... Moving on from that, we have more of your texts to get to, more of you weighing in. What are your thoughts on the annual opponents? Some more of you weighing in on the Jox kickoff party from last night as well. A lot to get to here on the Friday morning edition of Morning Jox, 205-834-9450. Keep your text rolling in, and we will get to more of those next on Morning Jox. Oh, yeah. You know what time it is when you hear Lil Wayne on your Friday morning. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long off season, but we are back here on Morning Jox. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you for a few more minutes before we hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. And yes, if you're new to the show, this is your first football season with us. When you hear that music on Fridays, you know that means that we're going to have to pick some games. And we will have our picks for you for Farmageddon coming up, the big game of Week 0, which you'll be able to hear right here on Jox tomorrow, as that game's going to have an early kickoff at 11 a.m. from over there in Dublin, Ireland. So I know we can't wait. We are 1 day away officially from the start of college football season. So we'll have that pick for you coming up here in just a matter of minutes. But first, we do want to go to the text line and get some of your reactions to everything going on this morning. We have this text that rolls in. Chip texts in. He says, "Great show, guys. Enjoyed the kickoff party. Thanks for arranging it." Well, thank you, Chip. It was a pleasure to meet you last night. Great that you were able to make it out there. Jamie chimes in and says, "Don't give a damn. We'll play anyone. Roll Tide." Not worried about who's on the schedule for Alabama.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the mindset you got to have.
Not worried about it one bit. Thomas chimes in and says, "I've been out of the loop lately. Where did Damian commit?" You want to let him know?
That would be the University of Mississippi, also known as Ole Miss.
Hotty toddy.
Thank you.
Hotty toddy. Eric in Adamsville chimes in. He says, "I'm an Alabama fan, and I would love to get 2 permanent opponents, Tennessee and Auburn, and then a third rotating semi-permanent opponent, which would be LSU and then Mississippi State." So you would have Tennessee and Auburn every year, and then that third opponent would rotate between LSU and Mississippi State. Okay? Let's see. We have this text rolls in. It says, "For Arkansas, it should be Texas, LSU, Missouri." Okay. That would certainly be a bit of a difficult one there. Let's see. Cliff chimes in. He says, "Based on history, instead of Vanderbilt, Auburn should play Alabama, Georgia, and then either Florida, Tennessee, or Mississippi State." I think some people would like to see Florida.
Yeah.
I think they'd like to see that game. But again, it's just, yeah, and I would too. But again, it's, do you want, the easier path to the playoff, or do you want the more difficult game on your schedule? Bobby chimes in again. He says, whoa. Texas A&M fans are saying LSU sucks, but it took them 7 years, a head coaching change, and 7 overtimes to finally beat us after joining the conference. Well said, Bobby. That was a great game.
Oh, it was.
I'll never forget that game. That was a fantastic game.
Yeah, just, you remember who was at quarterback for Texas A&M.
Yeah, he was great.
He was what?
He was great. He's a winner.
Was he?
Sometimes. Let's see. We have Justin chiming in, says, "Had a great time last night. Nice to meet y'all." Appreciate you, Justin. It was nice to meet you as well. Mad Dog chimes in, says, "As an Auburn fan, I want Bama, Georgia, and Florida as the 3 opponents." There we go. Someone texted in. They just say, "The Aggies are scared, and they're the worst."
I tend to agree with that line of thinking.
Let's see. This one comes in, says, "Would like Auburn's games to be Bama, Georgia, and Florida. Love the Auburn-Florida games except for 2019. Okay. Let's see. This one comes in from Bammer Abroad. It says, "Is there any room for schools to make deals with each other where one school has an opponent as an annual game, but the other doesn't? For example, Auburn has Alabama as an annual game, but then Alabama chooses Tennessee, LSU, and Ole Miss, but would still get to play Auburn every year." That's an interesting question. I don't think that it would work out that way. And I feel like that's more of a can of worms type situation, where if it's like you let one team do that, then every team is going to ask to do that. And
right.
then you have to accommodate, and then the schedule becomes more of a monster than it already is. So I think that's an interesting idea, but I don't think that that's ultimately something that we're going to see happen. Let's see. Brett from Arkansas, who told us last night his phone's just from Arkansas, but he lives here in Alabama. He texting in, "Had a great time last night. It was good to see you last night, Brett." JB says, "I like Alabama to play Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU. They're rivalry games, but Auburn playing Vanderbilt, since when has that ever been a rivalry game? I'd like to see Auburn play Bama, Georgia, and Florida." Well, a lot of Auburn fans sharing that sentiment as well. So appreciate all the text, all the love this morning. Sorry we can't get to all of them because we do have one thing left to do this morning, Damian, and that was make our picks for Farmageddon. Coming up tomorrow, you're going to hear it right here on Jox, 11 a.m. kickoff from over in Dublin, Ireland. You can catch the action on ESPN. But number 22, Iowa State taking on number 17, Kansas State. Kansas State, a 3-point favorite, over-under set at 51.5. Give me Kansas State in the first game. I know I know it's a new season. I know Iowa State was the better team last year, but something about Kansas State, it's just hard for me to go against them in this spot early on. Give me Avery Johnson and the Cats.
I'm going the opposite end. I'm going to Iowa State.
Okay.
I'm going to Iowa State. I think, and to be honest, I have no kind of dog in the game, no skin in the game. I just think Matt Campbell, for anybody that has a coaching vacancy, his name always pops up. Let's keep him in Iowa